Hey Realtors, it's Austin Smallwood with the SCR legal team to walk you through the upcoming changes to the compensation agreement that you'll be seeing in a few weeks. So we took the current compensation agreement and we've actually split it into two different compensation agreements. One is going to be for when the compensation is being offered from listing broker to buyer broker, and the other one is going to be from when the compensation is being offered from the seller, and you'll use the appropriate one that they're labeled at the top. Both are going to still be called Form 120. The one from listing broker to buyer broker will be 120 LB to BB, and the one from seller to buyer broker will be 120 S to BB. So kind of walk through what the form looks like. There's most of the two are similar, but I will point out where there are changes from the existing form and where there are changes between the two of them. So in paragraph 1, you'll put who the agreement is between. Obviously, for the listing broker to buyer broker, it's just kind of a line for the listing broker and the buyer broker. Same thing with the one for seller to buyer broker. It's going to have seller and buyer broker. Paragraph 2 is going to have the property address. Paragraph 3 is where the buyer's name is. Paragraph 4 is a substantial change from the way the form currently works. Gone is going to be the fillable blank for what the end of the agreement is. Here's how the term section is going to work now. If you have a compensation agreement signed between your brokerage and the listing brokerage, and your broker, the buyer brokerage, brings the buyer that is named in paragraph 3 to that property, and that buyer goes under contract with the seller within 30 days of this compensation agreement being signed, then this compensation agreement runs through closing. If that buyer is not under a signed sales contract within 30 days of this compensation agreement being signed, then the compensation agreement is null and void. And of course, payment is only made at closing unless it's otherwise agreed upon by the parties. So as a listing brokerage can sign as many compensation agreements as they would like with other brokerages, because the only one that's going to be in effect is the one that actually gets to closing. Any of the other ones are going to expire within 30 days. Paragraph 5, this talks about the compensation that the listing brokerage can pay the buyer brokerage. We got rid of some of the more confusing parts of that from the existing one and made it really kind of clear. The listing broker is going to pay the buyer's broker either a flat dollar amount, a percentage, or other. And that's where you would write out if there's something different than an exact flat fee or a percentage. And then clarify the default language that is if the listing broker defaults by either not paying at closing or preventing the closing from happening, then the listing broker would still have to pay the buyer broker compensation. And we're make a reference to arbitration in the listing broker to buyer broker form, because that is a service and a requirement through the National Association that we cannot bind a member of the public to, but if you are a Realtor member, you agree to participate in arbitration. And then set paragraph 7 are various clauses that are required by a law and settlement. So if you look at the one for the seller to the buyer broker, the really only fundamental changes again are where instead of saying listing broker, it says seller. The term section is the same, compensation section is the same, except for this part here, where it says the buyer broker certifies that they've informed their buyer the possibility of being paid by more than one party and has obtained the buyer's written permission to do so. So if you are the buyer broker and you are going to be paid by the seller and by your buyer, both parties need to be aware that you're going to be paid by both. That does not make you work any less for your buyer client. That does not suddenly make you an agent of the seller simply because they are paying you, but both parties need to be aware that you're being paid potentially by both sides. And then the default language is the same as in the other one, except for instead of listing broker, it says seller. And dispute resolution instead of arbitration, because again, we cannot mandate members of the public arbitrate. So those are the changes to the compensation agreement. If you have any questions on this form or any of the other forms, please give our legal hotline a call and we'd be happy to assist. Thank you.